Hey, this is Ishar, and in today's talk, I want to go over a simple question that you can ask yourself that can help you improve your choices in life and also boost your energy levels. Now, the question is actually very simple and straightforward. So, you want to ask yourself, does the activity that I'm considering bring me more energy or less energy after I do it? So, it does sound very simple, but it can actually make a world of difference in terms of how you approach your daily choices when you consider whether it's giving you energy or taking energy away from you. And notice in the question, I say, does this bring me more energy or less energy after I do this? So, oftentimes, things that aren't too good for us can trick us because while we partake in this activity, whether it's, say, social media or junk food, which I'll talk about in a second, it feels very good in the moment to do these activities, but afterwards you feel drained. And you'll typically find that when you do start to think about things that give you energy, they tend to be in the form of providing you with a steady sense of happiness or satisfaction rather than the ups and downs or peaks and valleys that things that give you instant gratification tend to give you, which rob you of your energy. So, going over the technique a bit more, the one way to apply this is to start to do an audit of your daily activities. So, what I mean by this is that when you wake up, take a journal and write down every single activity that you do throughout your day until you go to bed in the night. So, when you start to track down everything, you can then start to see whether your activities bring you energy or take energy away from you. And you can even start to write a plus or minus sign next to these activities. And that'll give you an idea of the amount of time you're spending in either categories of gaining energy or losing energy. And you can course correct as needed. So when I did this exercise, I was actually surprised at how much time I was spending doing things that took energy away from me. So I noticed that when I woke up in the morning, I would check social media. So I'd put my phone on, off, take it off airplane mode, and then start to check my texts and then Instagram, and then I'd end up scrolling through social media kind of mindlessly. And I found that this was not really productive, and it also sapped me of energy because when I did this, I was just about 10% less effective at work. And I also was a bit more lethargic because, that time I could have spent doing other things like, waking up, drinking water, actually starting to work, I spent laying in bed. So that was definitely something that took energy away from me. So I made sure to note that down. And then I've also noticed that whenever I would watch a lot of TV or play video games, I just started to feel drained of energy, so I felt lethargic and unproductive. I've also noticed that engaging in any kind of gossip, whether if it's even lighthearted, does take a toll of energy. So these things do not contribute to your happiness in any way. And I also noticed that leading a very sedentary lifestyle was something that also took energy away from me. Because in the moment, yeah, it feels good to kind of just sit around. But after a while, after doing it for a while, you just notice that you're less engaged with life. You feel just a bit heavy. So, again, this was also a lifestyle choice that took energy away from me. Now, what are some things that gave me more energy? Well, I noticed that meditation was definitely something that made me more centered, more calm, more free of different thoughts that suck energy away from me. So, I always feel good when I'm meditating. Even if I am having a rough day at the moment and I'm finding it hard to kind of sit, I always feel good after meditation. So this is something that I put in the category of energy gains rather than losses. I've also noticed exercise is something that gives me energy. Eating healthy food gives me energy. Writing gratitude lists gives me energy. Making YouTube videos like this gives me energy. Reading an engaging book also brings me energy as well. So these are just a few examples that I personally come up with when I went through an audit of my day. But now to go further, we can start to examine just sneakier, more subtle energy influences that you may not have considered. So there's obviously bigger things like what you do on a daily basis, but have you considered other things like the friend group that you hang out with? So when you take a look at the people that you hang out with on a daily basis, Are they positive and uplifting and supportive? And if so, they can actually bring you more energy in your life because you always feel refreshed after you hang out with them. However, if you do hang around with people that are a bit more negative or are toxic or just drain you of energy, they maybe complain a lot, this can actually drain a lot of your energy and you feel worse in their company. So you want to avoid these types of relationships that bring you more anxiety, more fear, more being more stuck in your head, and things that aren't very beneficial for you. And this is obviously a huge strain. We can also start to think about your unique set point in terms of how much alone time you need compared to socializing. So it's all about, finding your specific balance. So if you do genuinely enjoy being more introverted, you may need more alone time to recharge. So you can start to think about how much activities throughout your day are you engaged with other people and how much are you by yourself. And if you're an extrovert, you may need more of that social interaction or more stimulus in your life. Because what I find interesting is that the brains of introverts and extroverts respond a bit differently in terms of the dopamine pathways. So extroverts are able to handle more dopamine, so the threshold for that is a bit higher. And I do actually have a separate talk on this where I talk about the finding your unique set point in terms of socializing and also just being by yourself and engaging in alone time. So you can go check that out. And another thing to consider is your work environment. So just assess how your job impacts your energy levels. So as humans, we spend a lot of our day working. So it's important to find a specific career path that brings you more energy. So some things to consider are you working in an environment that aligns with your values and your natural strengths and actually allows you to use those specific strengths? Or are you traveling upstream and kind of working against your natural tendencies? So if you describe yourself as a bit more reflective and more inwardly focused and you don't like conflict and you work in a very tough, cutthroat sales job, well, while you might learn a lot, if you also have other energy draining activities or habits that you take on in your day, well, you can really see that this is a recipe for burnout. And this is actually quite common, but most people don't think about their energy levels. So maybe reassessing your current career choice or your other activities in life could be helpful. You can also look into the hobbies and passion that you engage in on a daily basis and whether you actually like it and whether it brings you joy. So don't do activities just because society told you should do it, but rather whether you can find a genuine pleasure and enjoyment in those activities. And that can look different for everyone. Lastly, a big thing is sleep. So should be obvious, but most people don't sleep well. So getting good quality sleep, and also things like your diet is really key for your energy restoration. So I won't talk too much about that because it's kind of obvious, but you want to make sure that you're handling those aspects of your life. Now, remember when you take on this process of looking over the activities in your life and auditing your life to see whether things can take energy away from you or are giving you energy, just understand that this process is a gradual process. So we want to start small and then work our way up to gradually reduce things that take energy away from you and then increase the things that give you more energy after you do it. And because if you try to make a huge life decision and get rid of everything right away, while you certainly can do it, if you don't have enough willpower in place, or you just know that you're kind of impulsive, after a while you may just end up reverting back to the activities that take energy away from you, or you might substitute it for another activity that takes energy away from you. So just be easy on yourself when you do this process, especially if you've had a lot of experience in years engaging in certain activities that take energy away from you. It may take some time. And so just be patient with yourself. One thing I did find useful is that if you have a certain activity that you engage in that takes energy away from you, you can start to think about the benefits that you derived from that activity because every quote unquote negative activity or things that take energy away from you actually has a certain use and it does give you pleasure in some ways. Otherwise, you wouldn't engage in it, right? but we want to channel it in more healthy ways. So, what were you getting out of it? So, start to think about that. Were you simply just watching TV because it kills time and in that moment, you didn't have to think about things and you kind of just were just sitting there? Or perhaps you'd eat a bunch of donuts every day because, it tastes good. Well, in these cases, you have a specific need that this activity would fulfill, but can you fulfill it in a more healthy or positive way? So, in the example of watching a lot of TV, well, could you, if relaxation and turning off your mind was something that you're looking for, well, could you now engage in meditation and that it'll accomplish the same thing? In terms of eating a bunch of donuts, well, you're doing it because it physically feels good, and well, could you now make a really good smoothie that you can look forward to drinking every single day? So these are just examples of how you can replace a habit that takes energy away from you with a habit that brings you energy. And as long as it fulfills the same need, you'll find it very easy to transition from one habit to the next without feeling like you're missing something. Because if you try to just change all your habits, all your negative habits right away, but you don't fulfill those needs, you'll find yourself craving and going back to that habit back again. So that's kind of a gradual process that you can take on by uncovering your needs that these habits meet and then try to fulfill it in a different way. So I hope you like this talk on managing energy levels. So again, just as a recap, the question you want to ask yourself to transform your life and to see how things in your life either bring you energy or take energy away from you is to ask yourself, does this activity bring me more energy or less energy after I do this? And again, to apply this practice and actually do it, don't just watch this video and just think about it and ponder it over, but actually take a journal out and write down your activities that you take on from the moment you wake up to when you sleep. And next to each activity, either put a plus or minus sign, whether it gives you energy or takes energy away from you. And then from there, start to keep tabs of the things that take energy away from you and uncover this hidden need that you're trying to fulfill through this activity. And then from there, try to replace that habit with a more positive version of that habit where it fulfills that need. So, example of this is if you spend a lot of time doom scrolling through social media, it could mean you're simply looking for connection. And if that's the case, maybe reach out to a friend. Or maybe you're just doom scrolling because you're bored. Well, in that case, engage in an activity that you're actually interested in. So these are just a few examples. So I hope you try this out. And I'm curious to know in the comments what you've personally found out about yourself as you've done this audit and what habits you've personally replaced if you feel comfortable sharing. So, hope you try this out and let me know if you'd like to hear more about this topic. Thank you.